Great. This is Yoram Miller. I call to order the November 17th, 2021 meeting of the Village of Mamaroneck Board of Ethics. We will have one small matter that will require executive session, but I'd like to do everything that we can do sort of in the general session first. And the first order of business there is just the November 10th minutes. Does anybody have any edits or changes to the November 10th minutes?
Nope.
Hearing none, do I have a vote to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor of approving the November 10th minutes? Aye.
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 With that, the minutes are approved. So I want to apologize to you guys. I had grand plans this weekend to finish everything and give everybody plenty of time to review what I did. Instead, I ended up sending you guys stuff not terribly long ago. So, and not nearly as sort of finished as I would hoped, but hopefully it's enough that we can work through the issues and see if there's anything else we want to add to either the documents that I just sent over. From a scheduling perspective, we basically are still a board in our current composition until the end of the month and a few days into December. So it probably makes sense, and hopefully we won't need to use it, but to schedule a meeting in the very, very beginning of December, say December 1, to finish our business if we need to. Does anyone, Alan?
What do you mean by current composition?
Well, I don't know what's happening. Jeff, at this point, terms out. I don't know if Jeff is going to be reappointed or not, or if Jeff is going to, apply. So I'd just like to make sure that the five of us can still do whatever we need to at this point as a group.
Well, yeah, you have to approve the report,
Correct.
the old board, for the meeting, the organizational meeting of the village board, which is what, 6th or 7th, something around there.
Yeah.
And I have to decide whether my various crises with LMC media is going to take up too much of my time or not. We've had a bit of a crisis this last week with Larchmont giving us notice that they want to pull out after a year. And so we've been dealing with that.
Gotcha. Okay, so sorry, going back to your question, which was what do we
December
need to
1st, is
before,
that a
Jeff?
date that we as a group could meet?
Now, let me get my calendar.
Guys, I sent you an email to Yoram, by the way. Something just came up and I'm going to have to go get my kid from school in about 40 minutes.
Oh, we'll be done way before then, so don't worry.
Okay.
And if you need to go sooner, by all means do. So.
December 1, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm good. What time are you thinking of?
This time seems to have worked for the group. Does it still work on December 1?
1:15 on the 1st?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Okay.
And the good news is I think we get to be pretty short today with what we need to cover. I know I just circulated it not terribly long ago, but I don't know if anyone saw, other than Sherry, the latest advisory opinion for Dan Natchez that I just sent over.
I just found it on my computer. Haven't looked at it. Do you want me to look at it quickly? So
If you want to look at it, just it's nice and short, just to see if substantively you agree with sort of the approach we're taking. We don't have to finalize the language, but just to make sure that sort of conceptually we're in the direction everyone's comfortable with.
okay.
That'd be the one thing if we can do that. But let's do that in executive session.
Okay.
The other thing is I just, and even more recently, sent over a draft annual report. And the only issue with that I see is, bear with me, everyone, I apologize. I want to make sure that if there are topics we want to raise to the Board of Trustees, we're going to raise them. And so I just flagged basically 3 issues that we've talked about. And I just want to see if people have others they want to address. The first one is the records keeping issue that we've talked about a few times. And just basically asking the village to help us figure out a system to securely store our records that would be permanent and only accessible to people that should be viewing the records. The second point is, I think we're not emphasizing enough, and this is not something we've talked about in detail, with especially the changes that are being proposed to the ethics code. There should be more training than is being provided. And I think we need to emphasize that to the Board of Trustees. A lot of the questions that we're asking as ethics board members, those are things that should be made available just generally to everyone who has to comply with the ethics code. And that's not happening at this point. And then the final one, Susan, relates to some of the, you've brought up a few times, and it finally hit me the importance of it. and the notion that we have relationships and we have a list that looks exhaustive of the types of relationships that necessarily involve conflicts, specifically children, spouses, parents, things like that. And, the romantic relationship is an obvious one that has the exact same conflict of issues concerns. And the approach that I took there, and I'd be curious to sort of see your reaction, is basically say, this is a real issue. People don't know that the list that we have in there is not exhaustive. And other relationships can be fraught with conflict of interest as well, whether we want to put language in the ethics code to that effect or make that an emphasis in training. But I think your point's well taken, and it's something that we should flag directly, is put the onus on the board members, the committee members, the employees to know these are the relationships that they have and their ethical obligations associated with them, and recuse where necessary. Don't participate in contracts where it would be inappropriate. And I think maybe it's a training, maybe it's language that doesn't have to be precise, but just alerts people that the relationships that are there are not the only relationships that can have conflicts. And maybe even give examples if we want.
Well, could you just say in other intimacies?
I think so. This is where the question that we ran into with Dan Carson of other intimacies, is someone going to come back and say, that's too vague, I don't know what that means. But I think we can.
Other intimate relations?
I think we can be creative, though, in the way we address it and say, this isn't an exhaustive list. Other examples could be, and maybe work it in that way and let people know that the overall tests that were there are still there about, are you benefiting in some way, or is there an appearance of impropriety?
Yeah, actually, you could say something like other relationships where you're where your goals overlap, or your needs or your interests overlap with another person. Because that's really, when they saw nieces, I mean, some people are really close to their nieces, but I have some nieces that that wouldn't be part of that list. It wouldn't be fair to put it on that list. But, really it is about having unknown and unknown to the world needs and values, in a sense, that are coincide, as opposed to just anybody else. And that's what we're talking about. I thought I was talking about.
No, yeah, I got it. Took me a while, but I got
Maybe you could. Look, we don't want to have gossip. It shouldn't be about gossip. It should be about, is somebody really being able to be objective or working on behalf of somebody else that we wouldn't know about, basically.
And I think maybe we can articulate it in some broader sense that way, and give a couple examples. What we run into is you're allowed to vote on matters that involve a close friend. We've already seen examples of that we've been advised that's not necessarily a conflict.
Right.
Or a neighbor where you may have common interests, but it doesn't rise to the level that requires recusal. So those are a way to flag the issue for somebody and basically say, if you effectively can get benefit that, is beyond the normal benefit from a matter, or if people that are close to you in that sort of unique way. And I think we'll have training may be a better way to do it. I think the code may already cover it in many ways, but people just don't think about it that way. And in training, we can be much more explicit in terms of, there's an example, you had a 5-year relationship with somebody, or, you used to be in business with them, but, and you plan to go back in business with them again, but you're not currently in business. There are all kinds of examples I think we could come up with in a training context that.
Who did you think was going to be doing the training? Us? We?
No, what's been done in the past is they bring in somebody from some of the New York State ethics groups, and they come in and they look at our code and they ask us, well, what are the unique features of your code? And they address it. Now, I shouldn't say too many times, it's happened once, but the one time it happened, I thought it was very effective, and it was done well and very poorly attended.
Oh, but wait a minute. I thought you were talking about training the people who are going to be covered by the code.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We had one training session in 2019.
Wouldn't it make sense just to have a handbook and then everybody, because there's 76 people who filed for, whatever, you're not going to get all these people into a training session and they change. So here's your handbook, read it and become familiar. If you have any question, call Yoram.
Well, at my company, they do it via Zoom. There are Zoom classes. And when you are hired, you have to take certain classes and pass them. And ethics is one of them.
And the village here already does that, or has on occasion done that through videos you have to watch online that deal with harassment in workplace. And
maybe we could hire LMC TV to make the video.
Wait, that may be a conflict, right?
We got the studio.
Don't laugh. It's not a bad idea.
no, it isn't. I was thinking maybe that's something we want to suggest, is that maybe rather than having it discrete training sessions, any training session be recorded, and if people don't attend, it still be a requirement that they view the session.
Yeah.
I will pass that along.
Right.
I know somebody.
Okay.
So are there other issues in Sherry? There's going to be a passing reference to the employment, the post-village involvement restrictions that were there. I'd like to see what the ad hoc committee comes up with, I think, at this stage before we jump in too much on that point. But it's one that at some point, I think you're right, we need to address.
Okay.
And with that, if anybody, at this point, if there's nothing else we want to go over in general session, I'd say let's just jump into the executive, take a quick look at the one matter we have to review, and then figure out if there's anything else left to cover today. So with that, I'll move to go into executive session.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, everybody. I'll see you guys in executive
Can
session.
somebody send me a link? I don't
Yeah,
have
I
it.
don't think I have the second link either.
Oh, I'll forward it to
Yes,
both.
Sally sent it out. Look on, it's under Sally.
Yeah.
I think.
All right.
You should have
Right
received about,
after she sent us the first one.
yeah, exactly.
The what?
You should have received it within a couple minutes of the invite for this session.
And it's from Sally.
Sally,
I got one from Sally at 9:29.
That's all I got.
oh, that's interesting.
That's it.
We're
So
on
not
the-
included in that one?
No, it's just the one for the one we just did.
Well, that came from VOM admin
Right.
VOM host.
host. I mean, this would have come from
That's
me,
the
but
one
I'll
we're
resend
on.
it. Right, the other one would have come from S. Roberts, but I can resend it.
Were you going to send? Oh, maybe on the. Let me.
Susan and I don't
Going
have.
into my.
Okay, that's fine. I'll resend it.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what? Yeah,
right.
it's here in move to inbox.
I don't have.
Okay, we're all good?
All right, I'll see everybody in the next meeting.
I don't have it. Somebody forward it to me, please. Still don't have it.
I'm going to forward it to you right now, Alan.
Thank you, Susan.
Just sent it to you again, Alan.
I got it, Sally. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
right, I'll give Jeff a couple seconds, but we have a quorum, so we'll be able to go ahead and adjourn if need be. And I guess if we didn't have a quorum, we'd have to adjourn anyway, so it doesn't.
Or we could just stay here, till we have a quorum.
Oh yeah, recording in progress. So I'm glad Jeff is here. If Jeff isn't continuing, which I personally hope you will continue, but if you don't, what's the procedure for adding another person to this?
The Board of Trustees will select somebody. I believe they've got the 2 Democrats, so the only restriction in terms of who the board could pick, the person could not be a registered Democrat. If we have another-
Do people get nominated? Like if I know somebody who I think would be good, what could I do
In
about
the
it?
past, and Sherry, you may, and Jeff, you may know more from your other experiences.
That may be a conflict of the board of the Code of Ethics.
Usually you can submit a resume and a description of what you want to do, and that usually gets forwarded over to the Board of Trustees.
You mean if somebody I know was interested in nominating themselves kind of thing?
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't have to be nominated. All you have to do is send a letter of interest with your resume to Sally and say you want to, be considered for the Board of Ethics. And then the Board of Trustees looks at all the resumes and they choose who they want to put forth and then vote on it. But it has to be, I don't know what everybody's affiliation is, but we can only have 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and an unaffiliated.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
all right, thanks, everybody. So I appreciate everyone's efforts and patience with me, and we'll go ahead and wrap up our business no later than this time next week. So thanks again.
Oh, wait, one more thing.
Or 2 weeks, I should say.
What was this thing about the holiday party? Is that like a thing that you should do?
I think do it if you want to. I don't feel like there's any.
Never
obligation.
want to, but if it's going to benefit somebody else or you or whatever, I can't remember when it was.
No, it's just a little
Just
gathering.
Like if I want to have fun with my neighbors, I would do that. Is that what you said? Okay. Is anybody going?
When is it?
a new restaurant too.
I can't remember when it is.
It's December 14th at
Yeah.
5 o'clock at Baby
Baby
Duke's.
Duke's.
At where?
Going from Chinese to seafood.
Baby Duke's where Lum Yen used to be.
Oh, yeah. Ah. All right. What's it called? Baby what?
Baby Duke's.
Has anybody been there?
Yes,
And,
I have not eaten there. I've just had drinks there.
and?
We had to have drinks after our Board of Control meeting.
You had to have drinks. Okay, I get it. No, I mean, did it, okay, never mind. You didn't eat.
No, it was we went there on a weeknight and the place was quite crowded. This was at, like 8:30 to 9 o'clock. And
I'm
the place
surprised.
was hopping, which I'm glad to see. It's a new place that's hopping.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right, everybody. So I will adjourn today's meeting, and I will be in touch with everybody very soon. And like I said, get me whatever feedback input you want. We'll make sure we get all this tidied up pretty quickly.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Move to adjourn.
Second, all in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
All right,
There we
thanks,
go.
everybody. Take care.